Our first speaker, Mary Pope Osborne, is the award-winning author of the Magic Treehouse series, which, listen to this number, ladies and gentlemen, sold more than 110 million, let me say it again, 110 million books worldwide since its debut in 1992. Okay? The milestone 50th Magic Treehouse book, Hurry Up Houdini, and its companion fact tracker, Magic Tricks from the Treehouse, both come out this July. Mary is an ardent advocate and supporter of children's literacy and has developed the Classroom Adventures program, providing free resources for teachers to use in their classroom and grants for Magic Treehouse books to Title I educators. Through her Gift of Books program, Mary has donated approximately 250,000 books since the program began in March 2012. Yeah. Please welcome Miss Mary Pope Osborne.
I hope you'll forgive my hoarse voice. I've had a cough for 4 weeks now. I did a reading at the Cloisters last Saturday, and by the end of my talk, no sound was coming out at all. And right after that, a little boy came up to the podium and silently handed me a cough drop. But I'm used to that gentle, encouraging gesture from my readers. A few years ago, I broke my wrist and my finger on this hand at the same month on ice, falling on ice in New England. So I was wrapped in bandages, and I went to a school and gave a talk. And at the end of the day, one of the librarians brought me a little card a boy had gone back to his classroom and made. This little card is always over my desk. It shows a finger with a bandage, a hand with a wrap around the wrist, and it simply says, "I pray for Mrs. Osborne." One of the great joys of writing for people who are mostly 7 and 8 years old is that there's nothing sweeter, funnier, or more authentic than a 7 or 8-year-old. They're just old enough to have formed an individual self, and just young enough not to yet be invaded by social media, hormones, and peer pressure. I find this age to be amazingly honest and original, kind-hearted, and profoundly heroic. I've spent time with 7 and 8-year-olds in New Orleans after Katrina. I went to Japan after the tsunami and visited 7 and 8-year-olds in the schools where the areas had been hit by the wave. I visited elementary schools in Lower Manhattan right after 9/11, and I met with the children of first responders who had died in the towers. I've talked to orphans from the Dave Thomas Foundation and kids dying of cancer from the Make-A-Wish Foundation. I've met hundreds of kids in special ed classes who have dyslexia, deafness, cerebral palsy, autism. I've spent a lot of time with kids who walk dangerous streets and live in squalid homes, and I've met with kids who have no homes at all. And of course, I've met with thousands of children who have wonderful families and devoted parents. But there is a commonality I have found of all these children of 7 and 8. Whatever their fortune or misfortune, they all basically love life. They're curious, open-minded, they still admire and trust grown-ups. They have an innate sense of fairness and justice, and they want to help others. They always comfort me more than I comfort them. For 20 years, I've received thousands of letters that reveal the optimistic, good-hearted spirits of children this age. With their letters, they've sent me food, apples and marshmallows, handmade jewelry and bookmarks, photos of themselves and their pets, carefully written stories and illustrations, birthday card invitations, and Valentines. So many of them, when they write me, work hard to give me encouragement or bolster my self-esteem. I keep this letter from a little girl who wrote, "Your books are the best in the entire world. You are a star. Yes, you are a genius of tomorrow." I love this letter from a boy who wrote me, "I like your book because it almost made me smart." And another boy who wrote me, "If you keep making these books, I will keep reading them. I hope this inspires you to be a better writer." And this one is not atypical. The child who wrote, "If you get stuck while writing your books, write me and tell me what you're stuck on, and I might write back with a few ideas." Readers frequently make suggestions on what I should write about in Magic Treehouse. This was my favorite all time. "I have a suggestion for Jack and Annie books. I want to know about sodium, calories, and my brain, and why I lose water and sodium when I perspire, and why I have a runny nose." Or they tell me the books they're writing. One boy wrote, "I'm writing a book. It's really scary, but I'm not done. It's called The Septic System." I wrote him back and asked me to send me his book, and he never did. A boy in Mississippi once wrote me that he'd like me to come to lunch, and he said, "I'll serve you chicken, steak, corn, peas, beans, mashed potatoes, cookies, pie, and name your drink." Sometimes children write to get help from me, such as this boy. "Please, I want you to send me 2 of your books. I like reading stories very much, and I want my reading and writing should be perfect. Please, it is in Matthew 7:7 that ask and it will be given to you. And please, as I ask, I hope you're going to give me. Please, don't disappoint me. Please, can you send me 4 of your books? If not, please consult me. If you don't know how to read and write, you will suffer in your life and you will not get any job or work to do. So please have mercy on me," in all caps, "send me the books." This boy, but he was absolutely right. If he doesn't have books, he will suffer in his life. The wonderful First Book organization tells us that low-income neighborhoods have approximately 1 book for every 300 children. A study from the Annie Casey Foundation and many other studies say that students who don't read at grade level by 3rd grade are likely never to catch up. Students who don't read by the end of 3rd grade are 4 times more likely to drop out of high school. 85% of juvenile offenders are functionally illiterate, as are 60% of all prison inmates. I think we could change the world if we could get all 3rd graders reading at grade level. Teaching them to read. Teaching them to read is not only helping them find success in the world, but it's giving them the joy of a lifetime of reading, where they can leave their lives and get lost in the world unlike their own, go to Victorian London, travel down the Amazon, fly on the back of Pegasus, and still be home in time for dinner. Many years ago, before I even wrote Magic Treehouse, I, along with other children's authors, spent a year visiting a number of disadvantaged schools in the New York City area. After a visit to a school in the Bronx that had no windows and no libraries, the school was in an old bowling alley, I received a letter addressed in a real childlike handwriting, and the letter was from a 2nd grader at the school, and I have no idea how she got my address and got an envelope and got a stamp to put on this letter. But she asked me to send me 1 of her books to her school so she could own it. And I wrote back, and I tried to explain that I could not send a book to her school just for her because it wouldn't be fair to the other kids. It pains me now to think of my answer to her. A week later, I signed books at a book fair at a private school on the Upper East Side. Children had blank checks from home to buy as many books as they wanted at the book fair. It was wonderful. I had no problem with that. But on the very day of the book fair, when I got home, there was a second letter from the little girl in the Bronx. And twice now she'd found a stamp in an envelope. And this time she wrote, and I have it memorized, "I figure out a way you could do this. Send me the book to my house, and I don't tell nobody, I promise." Well, of course I sent her a book. But now I wish I'd been able to send a book to all the children in her class. Fortunately, I'm now fortunate enough to be able to do that. Last year, in honor of her, I don't even know her name now, and in honor of all the teachers who've helped with Magic Treehouse so much over the years, my husband, Will Osborne, and my sister, Natalie Pope-Boyce, and I have started the Magic Treehouse Classroom Adventures program, where, as we were told, free of charge, the online program provides lesson plans for all the books, a reading level guide, curriculum key, and it gives guidance on how to use the Magic Treehouse fact trackers, the nonfiction companions that have been written by Natalie Pope-Boyce and Will Osborne. But the best part for me is the Mary Pope Osborne gift of books. In conjunction with First Book, we are able to give grants to teachers from Title I schools who write to us and request the books through the website. We've given over 875 grants in the last year and a half. We were able to give away 120,000 books to all the third graders in Newark last year because they're all in Title I schools. This was a real special gift because it was so joyful. Every third grader got a box of 28 books. So it wasn't going to be one book, you know, I didn't think that would do the trick, but maybe 28 books each to take home to fill their house with their siblings could make a difference. We did the same thing a few weeks ago in New Orleans. We did the big box giveaway. To further our literacy program, though, Random House will launch the Magic Treehouse Passport to Adventure Reading Buddies Week next October. There'll be events in schools and libraries and bookstores to help pair younger readers with more experienced readers and to share books on a regular basis. I love this idea because I love older kids working with younger kids and grandparents helping their grandchildren and volunteers going into schools and reading with 7- and 8-year-olds and whole families reading together. In those situations, for me, it's not just about acquiring the skill and the joy of reading, but it's about that tender encouragement that 7- and 8-year-olds are so willing to give to others. Finally, I want to share with you an utterly strange part of my life. In the last 20 years, I've encountered in person or through the mail thousands and thousands of children. I think about so many of them so often, like those letters that have been sent over the last 20 years. But the person I'm thinking about is always 7 or 8 years old. When you have your own children or you teach children, you see them gradually grow older and change shape. But I've missed that part with all my children. I have seen almost none of them grow older. So for me, they're forever 7 or 8 years old. I have to ask myself, who am I holding in my heart? Where's the child who wrote the book about the septic system? Or the boy who wonders why he has a runny nose? Do they no longer exist? To borrow words from Robert Louis Stevenson, are they simply children of air that linger in the garden there? I've decided no. All the children I think about so often, the children who wrote me the letters or sent me the apples and marshmallows, have not turned to air. They might be invisible to the eye, but they still exist. The hidden 7-year-old is still alive and heroic, curious and kind-hearted. he or she still longs for adventure and wants to do good things for the world. They all still exist, hiding inside gangly, awkward, long-legged people who look like teenagers and grown-ups, or like you and me. And that's the most wonderful news I had to share with you today. Thank you.
Mary, it is no surprise that you've sold 110 million books worldwide. And I just want to say privately, can you send me a box of 28 books and I will tell nobody? I'm kidding, kidding.